Is Lords of the Fallen actually good in 2025? That's a question that's plagued all of us since the original debut of the game back in 2014. I actually remember trying this game out back during its first release in 2014 because I really truly needed that itch, right? It's just that itch that's at the back of your ear or something, you know? I needed this itch because at this given time, when back in 2014, Bloodborne was on its way. Dark Souls 3 was also coming after, which technically at that given point for like a Souls-like game, we had Dark Souls 2. You can kind of feel that need to play another Souls game. No disrespect to Dark Souls 2. That game still holds a special place in my heart, even though it is technically not deemed as it's deemed as like the redheaded stepchild of the Souls-like genre. But with Lords of the Fallen was not really it back then. The game was missing a lot of what fans of the Souls-like genre truly enjoy about the game. Fast forward many years later and we get the spiritual successor called Lords of the Fallen. This time around, the dev team and publisher CI Games wanted to really prove themselves, and I actually did not get a chance to play the day one version of the 2023 variation due to my hectic schedule that I had at the time. But in 2025, Lords of the Fallen, a dark fantasy action RPG, has now redeemed itself with its new 2.0 update. This version of the game is what my review will focus on, covering some of the gameplay, the visuals, and more. But the overall purpose of this review is to see if Lords of the Fallen is actually worth playing again. Therefore, let's hop right into the overall gameplay. So a couple of key things that a lot of people need to know about this game and what really make it stand out and really caught my attention when they were talking about the game coming back out is the dual world mechanic. So now this is a central feature of the game. You navigate the world of the living, called Axiom, but you'll also have the ability to peek into and transition to the parallel realm of the dead. Umbral, right? So you have Axiom and you have Umbral. And the only way that you can traverse between these lands is utilizing a utility called the Umbral Lamp. Now, while you are at Axiom, you can actually hold up the Umbral Lamp that allows you to actually see a temporary overlay of the Umbral realm. And this right here is what really changed my vision on this game. The fact that by doing that allows a extra set of exploration into this game with the different hidden ways, the different secrets you can come across, and even untold lore that you can expect when you come across this. And the changes of the environment of all that stuff sometimes is not present in Axiom. So when we are transitioning between the overall realm, this is often necessary to progress, solve puzzles, or even access certain areas. However, staying in Umbral is very risky and pretty dangerous. It does have its dark side to it, essentially. So there is a meter that you will see that is a eyeball at the top right hand of the screen, and that is essentially a buildup of how long you've stayed in the Umbral state. As more it increases, the stronger your enemies will the more they will spawn. And if you stay in it too long, you will bring upon the Grim Reaper. And I accidentally done that twice now. And it's scary because sometimes when you're traversing the world in Umbral mode, it's very hard to get out of it. You know, you really like being able to just traverse and see like the differences from the real world to the overall dead, and allow you to overall travel in between zones. So it's actually, sometimes you get lost in it, but when you do, you got a man waiting to get those cheeks, man. I'm telling you, man, he scared the living shit out of me. He scared the hell out of me. But while dangerous as the Umbral zone can be, there is the positive side of the Umbral zone, which offers rewards. You get different unique items. There's a bunch of treasure chests. Then, of course, you can a multiplier to your vigor, which is in this game, the vigor is equivalent to your souls that you see in Dark Souls, and you gain those from defeating specific enemies. And of course, when it comes to the biggest question is, how do you get out of this dread, this umbral world when you're in it? Because you cannot do it by many means. You can enter it easily by absorbing yourself into the lantern, or while you're actually holding the lantern out, you can actually get hit by one of the umbral enemies and it will drag you into the umbral world. But getting out of it is not as easy as getting in. So you can only return to Axiom at specific locations, such as Vestiges, which is in this game's variation of a bonfire, or the Umbral Effigies, which are basically temporary transitional points that you could be able to see, and you can only utilize that effigy once before it breaks. So another major mechanic that you'll notice when you're playing is, of course, let's go a little bit further into the umbral lamps and the soul flay. So as we know, the umbral lamp main use is for world travel, but that is not also just it. It also acts as a combat tool. So the first ability you get is the soul flay, which allows you to target an enemy. You can literally like Shang Tsung this man. You can rip their soul right out of their body. And then when the soul is separated, you can essentially get a couple more, a little bit of extra damage, which is wither damage. And it's temporary, but it becomes permanent if you hit the enemy physical form after the soul returns. So it's actually great to knock down certain enemies. Now, sometimes specific enemies needs to have a soul flay done to them to even deal damage to them. So I like the variety of different enemies you can come across. You can also utilize the lamp for environmental manipulation. So soul flay can also be used to interact with the different objects in the world, some of the different entities within the umbral realm from a distance, just allow you to solve puzzles and create pathways. You can attack enemies with it. You can push their soul around. You can use some of the soul flay charges, which you can actually use a soul siphon ability, and you can siphon some of the umbral entities or even enemies. Now, with the act of the umbral lamp out of the play, let's move a little bit more closer to the actual combat mechanics. So, like I said, the umbral lamp was one of the main things that really made this game stand out to be different from its counterparts. But Lords of the Fallen features a familiar Souls-like combat system with, your usual light and heavy attacks. You got your dodging, your blocking, and your parrying. There is a wide array of weapon types, swords, axes, hammers, everything else. Each has their own unique move set, and they have their own different scaling. Now, in my current playthrough, I am actually dual wielding, which is very possible, but you get a lot of cool combinations with some of the weapons you will dual wield, but you basically can no longer block. You have to stick to kind of parrying, which is not my favorite thing to do in this game. I will bitch about that later, but let's continue forward. So we also do got ranged combat. So other than me utilizing a lamp, you can actually throw a knife at people by clicking up on the D-pad to switch from your lantern to your actual hand. You can throw grenades. Of course, there's bows, crossbows, and spells. There's a lot of throwable items, but there's a lot of things you can do from downrange, essentially. Now, this game does offer a posture breaking system, which attacking and parrying actually depletes the enemy's posture. Now, in my opinion, the posture in this game is very weird and sometimes hard to really do. And you can attack the enemy as long as you want, but it really won't stagger them. You would notice that the meter doesn't really go down, especially like when you play other games who have very similar combat styles. Like, you can kind of see like your blows actually doing something. You can do a backstab, which that's something else I will bitch about later, but it doesn't really help when like for the posture. But whenever you do get the posture broken, you can actually perform a powerful strike for significant damage. It's essentially an execution, but it's like I said, it's rare to get around to it. Also, for us, there is something you would notice. There's the wither damage on the player. So similar to enemies, if you block an attack without parrying, without doing a perfect parry, you would take wither damage. So now this is where bloodborne kind of comes in. So in bloodborne, when you receive damage, you can actually attack the enemy to get it back, or unless you want to pop a blood vial. This is the exact same thing in Lords of the Fallen. if you don't parry the attack, you will lose health, and you can regain this health by just attacking the enemy. So of course we got our weaknesses and resistances to everything: holy damage, fire damage, there's poison damage. But you can also tell just by if an enemy is weak to something due to, like, if there's a gray for resistance, white for neutral, red for their weakness. And then of course, lastly, for the overall combat mechanics, we have the environmental awareness, which you can theoretically utilize the environment as your way. There are blisters that are red. You can explode those to deal excess damage to some of the enemies. You can choose hit one of the hazards or one of the knock them off a ledge by kicking them. So there's a lot of using the environment to your advantage. But moving on from the overall combat gameplay, we got to talk about the progression, right? So the game features quite a traditional stat system, you know, just like you would in any other Souls game. You got your strength, agility, there's vitality, endurance, radiance, inferno, and umbral. Now that overall determines your character's attributes, weapons, requirements, and as well as the scaling for everything you do. By experimenting with the different stat distributions allows for diverse builds. My current build that I'm working on is a dual wielding strength dexterity build, because from what I noticed, there's really no dexterity. It's technically agility in this game. So anytime I play a Souls game, I'm always going for that, like, that dex build. So my whole job is to parry, deal crazy amount of damage, like stacking up damage overall, and just trying to apply a lot of status ailments, like utilizing some of the burn salts to, you know, imbue my weapon with fire, some of the bleed salts to imbue it with blood. So that's kind of like my build right now. Now, of course, like another Souls-like game, you have the leveling up, which by collecting enough vigor from the enemies, you can spend them at the vestiges to level up your stats. You can also upgrade your equipment by coming across certain merchants around the world. They can upgrade your weapons and armor, just over improving. And of course, we also got the class system. Like I said, I chose more of a dex particular build, and you know, you get your initial equipment and stat distribution, but of course your progression is not locked behind that. You still get that significant customization. Like, my build has definitely changed from day one creating my character. Now, of course, this can't be a Souls-like game without the talk of death. Now, essentially, in this world, we are a lamp bearer. I'll get to that later, but we're lamp bearers. So theoretically, we get an extra life. So when you do die fully, you utilize both your lives, you lose your vigor that you did not utilize to spend, and you respawn at the last vestige you rested at. You do have one chance to retrieve that lost vigor by returning to your death location. Dying again before retrieving it will basically means you lost all of that XP for literally ever. You have to regain it. So this, and the reason why I'm putting emphasis on this, because maybe whoever you guys who are new to the channel, you probably never played a Souls-like game. Lords of the Fallen just might be that very first game you might play, so you don't understand the roguelike part of these games, and that's a heavy thing going into it. Is if you don't spin it right, you will lose it if you die. Now, there are temporary vestiges that you can actually put into random locations. They're called vestige seeds. You can only do that by overall pulling up your lantern and actually seeing if there's a flower bed underneath. Do that, pop the seed. You can always come back to that area temporarily. And of course, that also helps out with overall in-between checkpoints between you and the next area that you need to get to. So now let's talk about the overall story of Lords of the Fallen. This is going to be spoiler free, so don't worry about it. But Lords of the Fallen is set in the dark fantasy world of Mornstead, 1,000 years after the events of the original 2014 game. The malevolent demon god Adir, who was defeated and sealed away in the OG 2014 game, and he is on the verge of a catastrophic rebirth, threatening to plunge all of humankind into chaos once again. So we, as the player, we step into the role of the Lamp Bearer, a new member of the ancient Dark Crusaders. Now, one thing you will notice when you're out in the world is like how people overall react to you being that Lamp Bearer. And some of these warriors, you know, can also wield the Umbral Lamp as well, which is just the mystical artifact that grants the ability to traverse between Axiom, the realm of the living, and Umbral, the eerie and dangerous realm of the dead. So our overall quest is to prevent Adir's return by restoring radiance to the 5 holy beacons, which serve as seals to contain his powers. And that's pretty much how the game sets you up for the entire quest line. Close all 5 of these beacons, defeat all the monsters that stop you in, and boom, you're good to go. Each beacon is guarded by somebody who is a holy hallowed sentinel, but they have now got corrupt thanks to Adir's power, so we must sadly put them down. The Lantbearer, we will have to literally across the vast interconnected world of Mornstead. That's another thing that I actually generally like, is that every area is connected in some way. The game has a lot of verticality and a lot of horizontal type of leveling design. But the dual world mechanic is a crucial element of the gameplay and the story, which you would just need to often just shift between the realms to find new paths and everything that you need to get a chance at. But overall, you will meet a lot of different NPCs, and of course, this is one thing that all Souls games needs, is NPCs to help further carry the main plot point forward and add a different viewpoint and a different perspective on the story and quest line. Now, one major thing that I like about this game is that the story is told like other Souls-like games through its environmental storytelling, as well as some notes that are left in the world for the many characters that you would encounter. I do love the fact that the lore in this version of the game, but also keeping its own identity at the same time. Well, actually, we got to talk a little bit about the visuals and audio. Starting with visuals, oh my god. A significant visual feature is this seamless transition between Axiom and Umbral. Each realm has quite a distinctive visual style. Axiom presents a more grounded and dark and quite medieval aesthetic, with the castles, the monasteries, the different landscapes reflecting just this tormented, twisted fantasy, right? Then you have Umbral, on the other hand, leans into its cosmic horror, and it draws inspiration from it. I actually had to look this one up because I was like, who the hell did the art for this game? So sorry if I mispronounced the names, but we have H.R. Geiger, whatever, I'm sorry. And this one I'm even more, but I'm just going to say Beksinski. Those two, I looked at a lot of their art when I was doing research for this video, and I was like, they have just this twisted and organic just way that they do things. And then you can actually see when you look at their art and you look at the in-game art, you see that just pressed all over the place. The metallic structures, the deformed figures, a suffocating, desaturated color palette when you're in the Umbral. Like, it's a huge color contrast between the two. Then you think about the overall art direction, which aims for a dark and medieval feel, but incorporates elements of cosmic horror in the Umbral realm. Inspirations, like I said, range from medieval settings to the surreal and nightmarish works between the two of our top guys now. Some players have actually noted when I was doing research for this is that there are similarities to the aesthetics of like Dark Souls, Elden Ring, or even Bloodborne, definitely Bloodborne, with the noticeable use of Catholic tropes and a sense of religious zeal turned foul. And that's something you always notice, is like when somebody's doing something religious, you always see that there's something evil at afoot. And then, of course, we have the visual storytelling. The differences between Axiom and Umbral are used to enhance the overall narrative. Players are encouraged, literally, you are encouraged to observe how the environment changes when shifting between realms, and when you're getting the hidden paths and learning the lore through the different people who have passed prior. And then just another thing I want to talk about is the like overall character and enemy designs. The heavily armored knights with a sense of decay and creatures that of course are inspired by the cosmic horror. And then you have just this general aesthetic of torment, darkness reflected in their designs. A lot of people have noticed that the environments are detailed, but NPCs' faces might lack the same level of fidelity, which I kind of saw that as well when I was playing overall, because I'm just like, something's just a little odd about some of the faces, but I still feel like they did a good job overall for the overall design. One last thing, we got to talk about the engine. So Lords of the Fallen utilize Unreal Engine 5, allowing for detailed environments and potentially demanding performance, even on high-end systems. Now, Unreal Engine 5 is probably why the 2023 version was not doing well when it came to overall technical performances, because we know Unreal Engine 5 has caused quite a lot of problems for a lot of games recently. But the game supports features like DLSS on PC to help with the performance. You can do some of the post-launch updates from the 2023 to 2025 have included quite an overhaul of the character creator. You know, you get improved facial details and as well improved body shapes. That's one of the things that I noticed when I'm just booting this game up. Like, it looks great. Like, I remember watching clips of it back in 2023 and just seeing it now. Like, you can definitely tell the dev team really worked to get this game as perfect as it can get. Another thing I find perfect, and the one thing that always works well, you can't have visuals without audio, because audio always amplifies what is being shown. I am a firm believer in that. A significant update for version 2.0 brought also another overhaul of the weapons audio. You will actually feel and hear every swing, parry, and block has a much richer and more impactful sound. When you finally get that parry on deck, you can hear that ping, like that loud ping sound. It just really hits, and I definitely like that they were aiming to enhance the feeling of combat. Now, the sound design quality overall, so when it came to the 2023 sound design, a lot of people were talking about it was very mixed. Some criticized the impact and quality of the weapon sounds, but from what I currently played and am now currently reviewing, they have completely flopped that on its head. The overall sound design is crazy. The voice acting is pretty good too. I genuinely like how every character just kind of has that. It feels like I'm watching some religious zealot just. And then they really suck you in, and just the way they speak to you, all the different people you meet at the main hub part of the world. The overall soundtrack is pretty good too. The music aims to complement this dark fantasy setting, and then when you're just traveling, there's the overall ambient sounds that really helps the atmosphere of just sense of dread. There were some issues with environmental audio disappearing after some of the patches, but right now in current 2025, I haven't heard. Everything just sounds dreary, dark, and dead. It really gives you a sense like I have to make sure, like, am I playing a horror game? I feel like I am, but I feel like I'm playing an action RPG, but it feels very horror, and that's what I live for. I pay good money for this. The overall UI overhaul as well, the sounds, the different ways that the sound effects gives it just a more modern feel. And overall, Lords of the Fallen really creates a visually striking and just this orally immersive experience with this dark fantasy world. The dual realm mechanic just has that unique visual storytelling opportunities, while some of the updates on the enhancing the fidelity and impact of both the graphics and the sound, particularly in combat, has just been overall improved. But while we're talking about improvements, I gotta kind of talk about a little bit of issues that I may have experienced. Some I just have an issue with, but I wouldn't say that this could kill the entire game for 2025. But let's take it back. Back in 2023, Lords of the Fallen biggest ops was the constant bug issues, frame rate drops, and just a shit ton of other issues that I've seen from the community. But this time around, let's fast forward around in 2025, almost 2 years later, the game has gone through so many updates and fixes, and we have now reached a 2.0 version. And I don't have any problems, almost like the devs have completely fixed the experience for new players and even people who dropped it due to the constant problems. But with that being said, I do have quite a few complaints. The combat itself, the parrying and blocking system, reminds me of Bloodborne, because if you block, you lose health, and you must attack to regain your health. Parrying can reduce a lot of that damage, but it always does not feel like it negates all the damage. I've tried parrying so many times, and I feel like I'm pretty decent at parrying. Expedition 33, I've been doing pretty good. The Elden Ring, I did pretty good. Like, every Souls game I played, I feel like I do pretty good. Rise of the Ronin, And I'm like, for some reason, just the parry system just feels kind of trash. I'm not the biggest fan of it. The more I might have to get used to the way like it just feel like it doesn't work all the time. It's essentially a ridiculous tight window for it to truly work. So like I said, I'm still playing through it. I'm just trying to parry more often, but it's just like, God, it just does not feel, it doesn't feel good. That's just personal gripe. It does not ruin this game, and I'm still enjoying my time with the game. But I just something needed to be done. Another problem I had was it's the backstabs are a bit different with this game, as you will have to charge a heavy attack to deplete the enemy's stamina, then you will get your backstab. Me personally, I will prefer just the simple route, like in Dark Souls or even Elden Ring or something of that nature, when you can just click a button to initiate a backstab. If I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure Bloodborne did something similar. I know their riposte was different, but I have to think back about how they did backstabs. I think it was the same thing. I think it was a charged heavy attack to get the backstab. I'm just not the biggest fan of it. I just like the instant click and give me an execution. Don't get me wrong, it has its pros and cons, but just my personal opinion. I get it. Lords of the Fallen is trying to be different, but this right here is it just feels a slightly bit off. I don't know. That's just, like I said, that's just my opinion. But these are pros and cons to using the Umbra power as well. Now, this doesn't fully count as a complaint, but I thought I would mention it. But the pros are obvious. You open up the world into a new look of exploration and going into areas that were blocked off in the real world. But some of the cons are you are opening yourself up for some different evils, like manifesting monsters. And if you stay in the world too long, which is indicated by the eye, you would essentially just get death after you. So it's not really a huge issue or complaint. It's just, I definitely feel like just that part alone is what really can get a little bit jarring a little bit, knowing that like when you're stuck in an area in either world, there's no indicator of, hey, maybe you should get out of it. Now, of course, this is the no hand holding that is normally seen with a lot of Souls-based games, but it gets a little bit jarring at times. But my final thoughts on Lords of the Fallen 2.0 is it's a good game. Like, it may not be the same level as Elden Ring or any major Souls-like game that has came out, but it's definitely pretty fun. Like, it's just as fun as playing games like Neo or even Wolong Fallen Dynasty. Lords of the Fallen is a big title to join the ranks of the big super AA Souls-like games that has been released in the many years. I recommend this game to anyone who wants just a good itch to scratch for a nice size Souls-like. If you like today's episode, then definitely recommend subbing to the channel and joining the Outcast community and like the video. But if you want to support the channel, then join the channel memberships. Stay safe out there, and it's been your host, KICTV, signing out. Peace.